Welcome back to the Clearly podcast, where we get real about what it takes to change the way the world moves. I'm Danielle Walsh, your host, and today's guest is no stranger to transportation. Andreas Schörling has worked across micromobility, operations, and now is leading FlixBus for the UK, a key challenger when it comes to long-distance travel. FlixBus don't own the buses, but they are driving the end-to-end when it comes to networking, data, customer, and platform. Others are cutting back. These guys are taking a bet on data, discipline, and a new playbook when it comes to moving people around. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Good to have you. We've spoken a lot in the past on many different modes, in fact, many different areas and many different platforms. I guess I want to start with just taking a bit of a step back. You've been in this now for decades. What is business as usual in the industry and what is really shifting?
Yeah. Something that always amazed me is just how much demand there is for transportation. Across every mode that I participated in, you mentioned micromobility, ride-hailing, now long distance. As long as you're adding supply, there's always someone who wants to travel. So there is, and I find it almost philosophically interesting. This started 2,000 years ago. People have always been wanting to travel. We invented the wheel and it has progressed. That is still the case. Then I think what the challenge is when you are in a space like transportation that is clearly a hyper-competitive space is that you need to find a way to do that profitably. So you can always add supply, but then you need to find that balance, how you can make it in a profitable way. Something that also always remained the same is that people demand and require quality. No matter what transportation mode you have, no matter what your needs are, no matter the pricing point, people always demand quality. And that's a very interesting challenge that we're facing today with FlixBus, where we are clearly the most cost-effective way to travel long distance. But nevertheless, people require the same level of quality that you would have in any other mode of transportation.
Can you expand on what quality means in your...
Quality is comfort of travel. Quality is punctuality. The age or mode of a vehicle. So basically, the experience that you as a passenger have from the moment you leave your origin to the destination.
Are people willing to pay for that quality, or do they still want to have the cheap seat to Birmingham whilst also having that quality?
And you're nailing the point. I think that is the really fascinating thing, that people make no connection between price point and quality. People always demand quality, and ideally they have a low price point as well.
So you guys, context, you'll correct my numbers, 2023, 81 million globally in terms of the amount of passengers you moved around in 1 year. Valuation, the last one, let's call it 3 billion. So no small company. You're leading a major part of this in the UK and Ireland. Other players, if I look at the UK, you've got National Express, they're listed. You have Megabus, they pulled back. So if you are doing this balance between a low cost / still high quality, what's the secret sauce here?
It's you need to build a really scalable platform. And with platform, I refer both to the tech platform that we built, but then also the operational platform. In my mind, the biggest strength that FlixBus has built globally is, and I need to mention quickly the business model that we have. So we do not own the vehicles and we do not employ the drivers. So that means that we're an asset-light business. Then the true power that we built is that we can run a large-scale, long-distance land travel network with over 1,000 operators across the world in a really scalable way with high quality, and then also provide the demand efficiencies that we create.
So scale, because you've noticed you don't own the buses. Let's put in that scale part though. 1,000 operators. So the reason why, if I'm thinking back here, an operator will go with you is they're a small operator. Now they're joining a very scaled model. You're not owning the buses, but you are in the driving seat when it comes to negotiating the purchase of that bus, correct?
We absolutely. So we build partnerships with our operators, And I think you correctly point out that we give them the opportunity to join something they would not be able to do on their own. If you are a local operator in Leicester or in Birmingham, there is no way that you would be able to build a national network or a global network as we have done. So we provide that opportunity for them. We do that through partnerships. So we have discussions and conversations with each specific operator. If we're now discussing the vehicle topic, what fits them in terms of their operations? Are they already running a specific OEM? So do they already have the expertise with someone? But then there's also, of course, the operational consideration, what fits best to that route, and then we kind of join those two together.
Okay, so scale is important, but also here I'm hearing platform and data. So effectively, you have a local operator. I guess they're employing very different talent to what is under your helm. These guys are very good around operating and managing drivers, the assets itself. But I guess when you're stepping back here and you're looking at demand, supply, how to manage the actual network itself in terms of that flow, is this on you or is this on the operator?
That is largely on us. So we orchestrate the network. So then we have something we call traffic control, which then monitors the network ongoing. And if there are disruptions, they help the operator to reroute. They have breakdowns, they can bring in another operator that can support on that side. But I also want to pick up on what you mentioned in terms of we're quite different as organizations. We have built tech platform, we look at marketing, we look at sales. So you would consider us a tech company, basically. If you come to our offices, modern offices, you come to our HQ in Germany, people are sitting in beanbags, developing on Apple products. Whereas then the operators, they have a garage, their vehicles, their engineers are hardware engineers working on the engine, they employ drivers. And clearly you need two very different set of cultures in order to manage and thrive in those two things. And that is, I think, one of the real strengths that FlixBus has achieved in separating those two things. And we can build a culture that is best to deliver what we do, whereas then the operators can build a culture that is best to deliver what they do. And then we can bring that together in a partnership, and that kind of leads to the success we achieved.
When your competitors are doing the same, or is that your USP, is that you have actually separated that, created a partnership model?
Yeah, I think at the first glance, it might look as they're doing similar things, depending on where in the world, but there are some companies that do similar to what we do. However, they are coming from a traditional transport background. They do not have the tech capabilities that we have. The big difference is that we have built the platform ourselves. So we haven't brought in any external suppliers to provide us with off-the-shelf products that we then integrated. We built everything from scratch. It took 12 years, but we've done that. Whereas those competitors who try to replicate the business model often don't have that tech component. And then, I know you're a big fan of data, then you would see that you don't get that native data integration throughout the organization that helps you drive the operations, and therefore I don't think they're comparable.
Sure. So if we then look at the trade-off, when you said earlier in terms of cheap, but give me value, or rather give me the best experience, but also give me the cheapest price. These days we need to also be safer, greener, still cheaper, of course prompt and on time, faster. What is the toughest trade-off for you at the moment?
The one thing that's never a trade-off is safety. And that's a key component of any type of transportation business that you're involved in. It is, I think we have to admit, a high-risk environment. And as such, you need to take the responsibility you have as an organization or as a leader to recognize that and ensure that the safety put in place minimize the risk for injuries or fatalities. So that is, I think, something that's a base layer. I think we are fortunate in the UK and in Europe and in other parts of the world that often governments have put regulatory frameworks in place that ensures that no one is cheating on the safety element. So I think that's a key component to begin with. Then I think one of the most interesting shifts that are happening, or potentially transformations, is the focus on sustainable travel. And that's something that has been top on the agenda for years and perhaps soon decades. And I think that's where we see a big question regarding the trade-offs that you're having there. And then obviously across the transportation sector, people are at different stages because they have different needs. Obviously, driving a small personal car in a city center is very different compared to what we do, driving a huge multi-ton bus with 50 people on the highways. I think as other industries and other players in the industry, we want to be at the forefront of this transformation into sustainable travel. I think it's fair to recognize that already today, connective travel is much better than the alternatives. So long distance coach travel today is probably the best solution you have for people who want to travel long distance. Then there is a next step where we want to move away from diesel engines into zero emission engines and technologies. That is where I think the trade-offs and the challenges are, because there is, as of today, no technology that fulfills the need to deliver those services. There is clearly a desire from passengers to have offers and services that are zero emission. The challenge that we see is that no one is prepared to pay for it. And that's something that when I'm out speaking to people, I see in other industries as well. I think airlines, for example, have this option when you're booking a ticket that can you offset my emissions. Very few people actually use that. I've heard single-digit percentage for it. So people want sustainable options, but they don't want to pay for it. And then we end up in a challenge that obviously we as a company, we want to lean into this. We can make investments into pilots and provide our data in terms of what we're seeing, but we don't have the resources to fund the whole transition. And that's a truly complex topic in terms of how do we get companies to work with governments and with manufacturers and kind of get that whole transition moving in partnership.
Well, you, or rather your partnerships with operators, would have the funds if the price point is the same or lower and the experience is the same or higher. So I guess really here the onus is more on more innovation that's coming into the realm of not just electric, but it could be hydrogen, it could be just be biofuels, it could be a more sustainable way of moving, as you mentioned, which is collective movement in itself. So getting more people off single car movements into the buses or trains or other realms that you actually cover. But I guess, yes, you are not a philanthropist. You're obviously still trying to make a profit. You must make a profit. You are investor backed. But just back to that trade-off then. So you think the toughest trade-off as safety is a must have. Experience sounds like also for the customer must have. I guess it's the sustainability part that is a must, a want, but I guess still in the current status when it comes to buses, that's probably the toughest area that you're looking at the moment.
That's a good question.
It's a need, it's a desire by your company, it's a want,
yes,
it's a desire by the customer, but I guess achieving that goal is probably the toughest area.
Yes, I think that's a very good point. And we have very deeply rooted in the DNA of FlixBus that we exist because we want to provide travel to people everywhere, but we want to do that in a sustainable way. That is a core part of our mission. It's a personal mission for myself. It's a big reason why I joined this movement and I want to drive that forward. The challenge is that the there are big costs involved, very big costs, talking hundreds of millions, if not billions. And there are not, unfortunately, and it depends how deep we want to take this conversation, but the incentives are not necessarily aligned towards that direction. We, speaking to stakeholders in the industry, and especially on the supplier side, so vehicle infrastructure, and they don't necessarily see the need to develop these solutions, because they say, we don't know how the future will look like. We don't know which technology would suit this use case. And we don't want to risk investing a sum of money that could be defining for our respective organizations without certainty that there will be a payoff. And we're talking about payoffs in 5, probably 10, 15 years into the future. And I think you then end in this usual conundrum where you need the government to step in and say, this is the direction that we will go. And we are now imposing regulation to reach there, but we're then also providing support to reach there. Then depends how far macro we want to take it, but governments are, the last couple of years, struggling to make big investments into future solutions. So there's an element that is quite a complex question where a lot of stakeholders need to come together. And eventually, I think it firmly comes down to the voters to elect the officials they want in order to get those policies in place.
And just tapping a slightly bit deeper here, when you say it costs too much, because obviously, again, you're not the asset owner. You are facilitating the purchase with those 1,000 operators. They are buying what's the cycle of a purchase of a bus?
Between 5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years, they're in the room, they're going to be purchasing that new asset. And the cost here that you're mentioning is there's either no solution or the solutions on the market is just too expensive.
Yes.
So when you're doing a price point comparison, it's that extra cost. So let's take an existing diesel versus the electric. It's just the price point is just too high at the moment.
Yes, exactly. And actually, there are very few electric coaches that can do the distance that you would have to make. And then when you speak to OEMs, all of them have different prototypes in the making. And there's a lot of people focusing on hydrogen at the moment for long distance. But there you're talking about a vehicle cost that is 4 to 5 times as high as a diesel engine.
Yeah.
And obviously that will come down. I think that's the phenomenal thing with technology. You see it time and time again. Something new comes, it's expensive. And then human ingenuity, we keep developing it. We produce higher and higher volumes and the cost keeps coming down. The question is how we finance that part from prototype to volume.
100%. It's the incentives for the auto manufacturers or the infrastructure providers, or of course the battery providers, on how to get that price point / of course the experience. So in the case of a battery, it would be obviously time to charge, cost of charging, etc. And I guess that gap point is effectively R&D. And R&D will fall down to, again, the suppliers and government also stepping in.
R&D and production.
Exactly, suppliers and production. Yeah. So of the many different innovations out there, of course, we're not short of solutions, but actually when it comes to long distance travel in buses, what are you then touching on at the moment in terms of that tough trade-off of sustainability? Safety aside, I mean, you seem to focus on that a lot, but sustainability, what area then could be biofuel, could be hydrogen, could even just be the utilization of your platform to make a trip or a route more, I guess, efficient, and therefore, again, cutting costs and emissions. What area at the moment are you really excited about? Grounded now, not in the future, but just really here in the
Yeah. On this specific topic, obviously, we can bring a lot of value with our platform. We have probably close to none competitor when it comes to the depth and granularity of data that we connect for each trip that we do. So we track all the coaches that are on our network. Globally, that's thousands of coaches. You mentioned we're transporting close to 100 million passengers yearly. So we have tons of data that we can rely on to then find the ways to adjust and adopt our network to fit these potential new solutions. So here in the UK, we have run electric coaches. So we found a way to make it work on the network. We have been running hydrogen coaches in other countries. We have biogas. So we are leaning into this, and we have at the moment close to 100 coaches globally that are with renewable fuels. And I think no one could have done that at the scale that we do, thanks to the geographical footprint that we have, because we shouldn't forget that these technology will work in a different way in different climates, different places in the world. So that's a massive element that we bring to the conversation. But then also we have a very digitized way of planning the network with AI that's supporting the shaping of that, which then we can input the constraints from the respective technology that then can feed into that work. So that is then obviously leading the march into the UK. I have to mention that extremely excited about the progress that we've made in the UK market. We entered here in April 2021 during the pandemic, when people were saying it's absolutely crazy to launch a network in the UK at the moment, and are now this year reaching over 200 coaches, and are next year going to have the same size as our competitors and become the market leader. So there's a lot of things to be excited about, and a lot of things that are happening across the network.
Of course. We're clearly obviously data nerds. That's our bread and butter, day in, day out. You've mentioned you're tracking a lot of parts of the bus. What data is really moving the dial? It's really giving you insights. What is that insight, and where are you still driving blind on?
Yeah. There's a few elements. There's obviously the customer data that we have, where we have billions of data points. That is extremely interesting, and something I find continuously fascinating is how for every service that we launch, they ramp up quicker. So there's something there to the power of branding and being a recognized brand in the market. Initially, when you launch something, no one knows about you, you have no traffic into your website. And then over time, as you build that awareness, as you build that traffic, then every time you launch a new service, you can plot it against each other, and you see how it accelerates much faster.
And just customer data being what the customer does, what the customer wants, where the customer is, where they go.
Yes, all of that.
Okay.
So we track, as I'd assume you would expect from a tech platform, passengers from before they think about FlixBus, and through all the different channels, and predominantly both online and offline channels, how they then come into our universe, and then how they make an acquisition, and then how they use the service, and what their feedback is afterwards. So it's not one single data point, but it's the picture that you get once you track them throughout the whole journey that they have with us.
And how are you tracking the vehicles themselves? Telematics or just an app?
Yeah, so we have an app that is on each vehicle that allows us to track it as it travels on the network. So that provides a lot of the travel information that we have. Then obviously we're also working with the operators that have telematics on the vehicle, who can then provide, and something that's very interesting is, for example, the fuel efficiency.
Of course.
Which has a huge impact both on the sustainability, so you want to drive that fuel efficiency up to have less emissions, but then also from a cost perspective, obviously, where you can drive down the cost to the end passenger.
And that's a mix of telematics with fuel cards, or just telematics alone, or just the app alone?
I think the more reliable one is telematics. The fuel cards, I think, is a bit more difficult to gather. It's less standardized, so I think we use that less.
So it's, again, basing it off predicting certain gaps, I guess, in the data.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But I think the key thing here is really the customer, the journey of the customer, and trying to, I guess, not only promote new features, but also tracking how you can change their behavior in a certain fashion.
Yes, absolutely. And the interesting thing with transportation is ideally people just have an experience that they don't think about. You want transportation to just work. Smooth. You want to, exactly, sure. Smooth. You want to show up, travel, get off, and move on. So FlixBus should be in the background, but there's a lot of very high precision work that goes into reaching that point.
Sure. Do you have a model where with your partners there is any kind of penalty or reward for being on time, or a penalty for being late, trying to incentivize again the drivers to also be on time to feed that promptness that you have?
Yes. So a quick comment there, because that's a contractual thing, and we have a bit different setting, like structures with different operators. So I'll answer that, but a bit vague.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So quality is at the forefront for what we do from an operation standpoint. We mentioned several times that passengers always expect the highest quality. And then we obviously work with operators and finding the right operational structure to ensure that they deliver towards that expectation.
Really interesting. We spoke before, and it's something that obviously touches my heart as well, is leadership. So obviously you've ran operations and strategy at Lime, Get, now FlixBus. We spoke earlier in terms of you are a technology-led business, but it is all about the people. You obviously are a very good leader from the outputs you actually had. What is one of your secrets that's always held true to you?
It's interesting. You mentioned prior to this that our business is a people business. And I have so far not encountered any business that's not a people business. It is a cliche, but it always comes down to the people at the end of the day. And I've noticed in times when you get the right people on board, things are very easy. When you don't have the right people on board, things are very challenging and difficult. So as such, I think a huge part of the leadership role is to ensure that the right people are in place. And that is, on one side, the more enjoyable side perhaps, is attracting the right talent. Sometimes it's inevitable, it doesn't work. Then you have to be equally firm on parting ways, which I think is equally important. And then I think a separate point to that is everything is contextual. And that is to your business. So you need to find a strategy that works for your business in your industry. There's, I think, often a view that certain things works wherever you are. And I just find that time and time again that no, you need to really go into the nitty-gritty and details of what you are trying to achieve in that moment. And that, to reconnect it with the people topic, that goes back to people as well. Everyone is showing up to an organization for different reasons. And you need to find the reason that makes it tick with each individual that is in your organization. And obviously, the best way to do that is if you can shape a mission where you bring everyone together that engage and motivates people.
Really interesting. To finish, we always ask this to everyone we invite into the show. So you have a billboard. It's going to be on every coach or bus across the UK. No marketing, bold, honest. What would it be?
Switch to FlixBus. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. Really cool insights. I really enjoyed speaking to you before, today. Look forward to seeing you in the future. No one solution when it comes to transportation, when it comes to people. People are at the heart of any organization. No one technology for this industry. I guess we have to always keep our ear to new forms of innovations on the market. trade-offs, safety, sustainability, but of course, always quality and getting the price all in one. Thank you for joining, and thank you also for listening. We'll be back soon with more people shaping the future of transportation.